Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I have something really cool for you guys. I wanted to work on this for a little while and we are finally here. When I started playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Around 6-7 years ago, I looked at this massive ban list and I was like, what are all these cards? Why can't I play these cards? Like I knew them from the anime, like Pot of Greed. And, back then Dark Hole was at one and Regeki was banned. And it was like, oh, what is this entire list? You know, why do these cards get banned? Because you start playing and you have this list of giant cards and you do not know where or why they are banned. It makes you wonder because it's really hard to find information like that. Like why was a card like last turn banned? You need a lot of context for that. So that's why I made this video. So I have right here the entire ban list on alphabetical order. I want to give a quick shout out to CardGuild. Thank you so much for providing these cards for me. Of course I am borrowing them, I didn't buy all of them because some of these are real beautiful, very expensive cards. But shout out to CardGuild for providing the entire ban list for me, which is really fun. I only will be talking about the banned cards. If you guys are interested, I can talk about the limited and the semi-limited section 2 in another video. But for now, I'm going to go through the entire list in alphabetical order, talk about each card and why they are banned and the context of why they are banned, so that you understand why these cards are banned, why they will never come back, and maybe a little ban list discussion about if they can come back or not. So if you like this video, be sure to like the video, be sure to subscribe, leave a comment down below on what your favorite banned card is and why Masterpiece should be unbanned. Let's go straight into the ban list. See you. Alright guys, welcome to the well-known playmat. We have been here before, so let's just go straight into it. The first card at the very top of the ban list is Astrograph Sorcerer. This card has two effects. We'll talk about the pendulum effect first. During the main phase you can destroy this card, and if you do, take one Stargazer Magician from your hand or deck and either place it in your pendulum zone or special summon it. You can only use this effect once per turn. But the most broken card about this card is this monster effect. If a card you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can choose one monster in the graveyard or extra deck that was banished, or that is banished. I forgot that. And it's destroyed this turn, and add one monster with the same name from your deck to your hand. So basically, to place this in context like we will do, everybody knows the pendulum archetype really well by this point. And the pendulum archetype has a tendency to destroy his own cards with either Electromite or with Magician Trap or with Wavering Eyes, stuff like that. And this card got really out of control because it was super generic. You can destroy your own skill to add another card. There are so many pendulum cards that do this, like Sky Iris for example. Summon this card, you have a body on the field, then you can add the destroyed card back to your hand to complete your skill again, and the destroyed card you can pendulum summon as well. And this was just so broken. Like for example, you can destroy your double Iris with a card like Wavering Eyes or with Sky Iris or with anything else. Then you can special summon this card on your field. You have a body on your field ready for Electromite. Then double Iris triggers, this card triggers. So you get a search, you get another search, you have your skill back, you have your search from double Iris, you have everything. Or another well-known method of abusing this card was sending this card to the extra deck with Electromite, then destroying a card you control, adding this to the hand, then using this effect to summon itself, and then adding the destroyed card back with this effect, and having another body, extending more, and it was so good. This card was really broken. This card definitely made pendulum a thing. I believe the OCG still was at 1, but I generally hope that this card will never return because it was just too good. Back when Master Rule 3 was introduced, Blackwing Gofu, the Fake Shadow, was seen play a lot in basically every deck. What does this card do? It has a bunch of effects, but the most important card is he must be special summoned from your hand if you control no monsters. When this card is special summoned from the hand, you can special summon 2 Fake Shadow tokens, but they cannot be tributed or used as synchro material. So this card is a Blackwing card, but Blackwing does not use the effect for the tokens because it's a synchro deck. This card was only used as a link fodder. If you have no monsters on your field, special summon, Gofu, summon 2 tokens, instant link 3. That was it. And even at the start of the link format, when we didn't have all the broken cards, this card was still super insane. It was played in almost every deck. After a while it went to 1 during Spiral format, but this was still a blowout. You could just open this card, instant link 3. There's no reason generic stuff like this should exist in a link format era. Like, it was honestly just super good. Any deck could play this, any deck could link summon instantly, and it was really, really strong. One of the most recent hits, it's another Blackwing card. Blackwing's Burning Broken Steam the Cloak. This card is really, really simple. If this face of card leaves the field, special summon one Steam token. That's it. So this card is not once per turn. So you could just summon this off a Hulk, because it's a tuner. Then you can link him away, or synchro him away, or link him away, summon the tuner. Then summon him back with like Marcher. Then link synchro him away. Then summon another token. And this is a better O-Lion in every way. Except that it's level 3, which maybe. But every deck was going to play it. They preemptively banned this when Hulk Firebacks came around, and we never got around to playing with this card. So, preemptive ban for Hulk Firebacks. Then, one of the old classics. We have Blaster, the Dragon Ruler of Infernos. There are 4 Dragon Rulers. They all have the same effect. You can banish 2 dragons from your hand or grave, and special summon the Dragon Rulers. You can either banish dragons or monsters with the same attribute as the Dragon Rulers. So for Blaster, you can banish 2 dragons, 2 fires, 1 fire, 1 dragon, everything you wanted to do. And the only downside was in the end phase of your opponent, this card gets added to your hand from the field. So you summon him, then what you used to do was Xyz with it, then if it was still on the field, it goes back to your hand. But they all had a second effect, and let's talk about Blasters real quick. You can discard this card and 1 fire monster to the graveyard, then target 1 card on the field to destroy the target. And if Blaster is banished, they have a banish effect as well. You can add 1 fire dragon type monster from your deck to your hand. You can only use 1 Blaster effect per turn, and only once that turn. So basically, this card was just generically really good in stuff like Chaos Lightstorm, where you can banish your Eclipse Wyverns because it's a dragon. This deck was being played in every fire deck as a one-off. Of course, we all know Dragon Ruler format back when all these cards were at 3, which was basically a graveyard turbo deck summoning cards like Mega Beast Draco Sack and Big Eye, just blowing out your opponent by summoning dragons each turn and sending dragons to your graveyard and summoning more dragons each turn. And right now we only have Tempest at 1 because wind is one of the worst attributes in the game. Blaster, it's really, really difficult to say if these cards can come back because there are always archetypes that will benefit from generic support like this. I don't think Blaster will ever see the light of day again. Then we talk about Cyberjar. This is an oldie as well. This is a flip monster. When Cyberjar is flipped face up, destroy all monsters on the field, then both players reveal the top 5 cards of their decks. Special summon all revealed level 4 or lower monsters in face-up attack position or face-down defensive position, and add any remaining cards to their hand. If either player has less than 5 cards in their deck, reveal as many as possible. This was basically played in every deck back then at least 1 to kind of reset the game. You know, if your opponent was ahead, just set this, nuke the entire field, then go plus, or destroy the field and summon a lot of things. And it was just honestly, it was kind of a staple. For nowadays talks, it's really, really slow. It's not really good anymore. This card could definitely come back to 1 or 2 or 3, just like Morphing Jar has been. Because honestly, if you're setting this turn 1, then the Elemental Pater will just kill you anyway. So this card is not really, it has aged well. Then another one for the Link format. We have Dandelion. This card has seen played throughout the years a lot. Beautiful ultimate rare. When this card is sent to the graveyard, special summon 2 flip tokens in defense position. These tokens cannot be treated for true summon during the turn they were special summoned. Send it to the graveyard with anything, mail it to the graveyard with like a Dante, or send it to the graveyard with Cherubini, or mail it with a Raiden. This card was being seen in a lot of decks as well. It's just when this card is sent to the graveyard, not from the hand, not from the deck, not from the field, this card was always summoning the tokens, and it was not once per turn. And eventually this card was being killed because of the link mechanic. One that needs a little bit of context as well. Here we have this Trudeau. Another recent hit. If this card is in your hand or graveyard, pay half your life points. Target 1 level 6 or lower monster you control. Special summon this card, and if you do, this card's level is reduced by the level of that targeted monster. Also place this on the bottom of the deck. If this card leaves the field, you can only use this effect once per turn. This card enabled making level 7 synchros being really, really easy. It was a dragon, so that was really synergetic because you could send it to the graveyard with loads of stuff. But one of the most important uses of this card was it is a tuner, so you can make Hulk Firebacks, so this is kind of another victim to Hulk Firebacks. But despite that, this card is really insane with cards like the Guard Dragons, like LP Pisty, stuff like that. This card was, at the start, people were playing 1 with the Dragon Ruler, Dragon Ravine combo, but later in the lifespan of this card was just being played in every deck possible. And it was a 3-off. It was being played in Burning Abyss, it was being played in Spiral, it was being played in everything. And honestly, if this card was still a 3 right now, it would also still be played in everything, like Thunder Dragon, Chaos, whatever, every deck. This card is honestly really insane. It's generic extending, it's a tuner. This card was a really good hit on the ban list. People really underestimate how good this card was of a hit. Then we have Jin, Releaser of Rituals. When you ritual summon a monster, you can banish this card from your graveyard as one of the monsters required for the ritual summon. If a player ritual summons using this card, the other player cannot special summon while the ritual monster is visible on the field. That's the effect of Jin Releaser. This card was being played in Necros format for its full utility. You could send it to the graveyard with Levolva Chain, or if you have it in your hand, you could just ritual summon a Colossus, ritual summon any monster, and your opponent just cannot special summon. These you cannot special summon effects for later in the game, kind of thrown away by Konami. Back then you had like a lot of cards like Vanity 17 and stuff like that, but this card got the X because it was just so generic. And you could just send it to the graveyard with anything, again mail it to the graveyard with anything. Currently it is at 1 in the OCG, which is really interesting. I'm not a really big fan of not making your opponent special summon, but you could test this card to 1, but I think it will be a little bit too wild, so let's just keep it banned. So then we go to Double Iris Magician. This card has 2 effects. Once per turn you can target 1 dark spellcaster type you control, apply this effect, then destroy this card. Once applied, double any battle damage this card inflicts to your opponent this turn if it battles an opponent's monster. But the main effect is its monster effect. You can, or if this card is destroyed by battle card effect, you can add 1 Pendulum Graph card from your deck to your hand. The Pendulum Graph spell and trap cards are both insane. The spell card says if a card you control is destroyed, add a Magician card to your hand, and the trap says destroy a Magician card you control, destroy a card your opponent controls. And if you didn't destroy the Magician card, you can, what's it called? Send another card your opponent controls as well. So what's really insane about those cards is that you can search them with this, which is the main reason why it got banned. This card was taken way out of advantage. The Pendulum Graph cards are already really, really good, but being able to be added to the hand was kind of a little bit too much, especially when you combine it with cards like Electromite and Astrograph Sorcerer. So that was the main reason that this card got banned, because it was just bringing the consistency of those decks up way too much. Way too much. Then we go to one of my favorite cards, it's Eclipse Weapon. When this card is sent to the graveyard, you can banish 1 level 7 or higher light or dark dragon type monster from your deck. If this card is in the graveyard is banished, you can add that monster to your hand. This card was a victim to the let's ban cards around the cards. Pisty or LP summoned this card from the deck. Then you banish a dragon, then you banish this dragon to add the dragon back. Then with Pisty you summon this dragon back. Again, synchro it off or link it off, banish another card because it's not once per turn, banish it again, adding another card. This card was giving so many pluses. I really want this card back, but it just cannot be back as long as Pisty and LP are in the game. So unfortunate, but definitely necessary because this card was giving off way too many pluses. Then we go to another one of my favorites. This is Fairytale Snow. When this card was released, people were kind of sleeping on it, but this card is honestly broken. If this card is normal special summon to target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls, change it to face-down defense position, which is already good. If this card is in your graveyard, quick effect, banish 7 other cards from your hand, field, or graveyard, special summon this card. Not once per turn. Fairytale Snow was being played in almost every deck that was relying on the grave. Back then, grass that looks greener was still legal. So you could just play a mill deck, mill everything in your graveyard, summon Snow a bunch of times, using it as Link Fodder or Xyz Fodder back in the time. And just extend further, interrupt your opponent, and it was just another interruption that was really, really difficult to deal with, especially since it was not once per turn. Eventually this card got the X in the Thunder Dragon pure format, together with Brilliant Fusion, because this card was making Thunder Dragon go into Chain Link 7, which was a little bit too much for the deck. So Snow eventually got the X, even though Grass was banned, and this card is just honestly insane. I wish it would come back, but it's not coming back anytime soon. Another oldie, we have Vibrator here. This card resets the duel. Flip. Both players unite, this is an old text, all their respective cards on the field in their hands and all their graveyards with their respective decks and shuffle them. Both players draw 5 cards from their shuffle decks. So despite life points, you entirely reset the duel. Again, back then this was really good, especially in like advantage given formats where you were outplaying your opponent, you top deck 5 with your set it, your opponent has no outs, he attacks and dual resets, which is honestly great insane. Nowadays it's just super slow and just bring this card back, because what really is this deck, is this single card going to do? Now let's talk about another card that I don't have. I missed 2 cards for this list. 2 cards. One of them is Victory Dragon, and the other one we talk about now is Fishberg Blaster, which should appear in the screen right now. Fishberg Blaster is one of the best generic Mermaid support there is. You can summon him back from the graveyard by discarding a water monster, and that basically he's not once per turn. You can just summon back, summon back, summon back, summon back, summon back, and in a deck like Mermaid, where you discard cards for cost and you go plus, a card that summons itself to as an effect, discarding as a cost is honestly a little bit too much. Eventually this card was banned because of decks like that. Not being once per turn definitely got the X of that card. Then we have Global Bulb, another recent hit. If this card is in your graveyard, send the top card of your deck to the graveyard and special summon this card. You can only use this effect once per duel. It's a tuner. For example, what you could do is normal summon this card, make Tinkeribo, summon back Global Bulb, make Hulk Fibrax. Another hit that I do Hulk Fibrax. This card was at 1 for a long time, then it went to 3 because the effect is once per duel, so it didn't matter. But now it's just too generic for, like, you could mill it, summon it back, extend as an extender, and now especially with the Link Karibo play, you can make an instant Hulk Fibrax, and that's just a little bit too good. It's like a way better Jet Synchro. Then we have Grinder Golem, Grinder Golem, Grinder Golem, Grinder Golem, Grinder Golem. For those of you that do not know this fantastic card, it cannot be normal summoned or set. You can only be special summoned from your hand to your opponent's side of the field, by also special summoning 2 Grinder tokens in face of attack position on your side of the field. If you special summon this card, you cannot normal summon monsters during the same turn. This card brings some shenanigans from the famous Belgium YouTuber himself. This card was, I'm not sure if we have ever seen this card at 3 here, really relevant. I think we have. There was a small format. What this card does, because you need some context for this as well. Summon Grinder Golem to your opponent's side of the field. Summon 2 tokens. Those 2 tokens, link them away for like a Link Cross and a Link Spider. Link them away to Akashic Magician. Akashic effect. When she is summoned, bounce the cards that she points to. She points up and down, so you bounce your Grinder Golem. Effect Grinder Golem. Summon Grinder Golem back, summon 2 tokens. Link the 2 tokens again away for something else. Make the level 2 Firewall, the Link to Firewall Dragon. Bounce a card in your opponent's field, add it to the hand. Special summon Firewall, effect Firewall, 2 tokens. Make Firewall Dragon. Bounce this card, summon it again. Summoning 2 tokens. And then just, it's an instant like Link 6, I think. This card is honestly quite insane. This one is signed by Lithium himself. In the OCG, this card wreaked havoc with Grinder Golem in Spiral, Grinder Golem Inferno, Grinder Golem everything. You were just basically playing Grinder Golem the deck. And yeah, honestly, this card was always just too good to be true. Then we have Level Eater. Another card is slayed by the Link format. If this card is in your graveyard, target one level 5 or higher monster you control reduces its level by 1. And if you do special summon this card, that's it. It can only not be used for a tribute summon, or it cannot be tributed, except for a tribute summon. Summon a high level monster, summon this card, link it away a bunch of times, summon it back, keep summoning it back, it's not once per turn. Eventually your monster is level 5, link it away, summon another high monster, summon it back, summon it back, summon it back. This card never was really abused in our format. I believe there was only like a couple of, like Infernos could play this and then make an easy like Deco Talk or Burrow Load Dragon, stuff like that. But this card was never really abused here. Yeah, in the OCG this card was abused. This card was banned relatively quickly before it got out of hand. In the OCG this card is errated and it cannot be used for a Link Summon, which is honestly way better, because the main use back in the day was for Dark Synchro. This card helped your synchro plays a lot, and you could make like stuff like Quasars and stuff like that, and now that isn't good anymore. But back then, this card was really handy, and you know, those decks really need a card like this. So unfortunately, it got slayed in the ban list. because of the link mechanic. Okay, the next card is another semi-recent one. It's like Dagger. Dagger has 2 effects. In the Pendulum skill, once per turn, target one Linen Light monster you control, or one Linen Light monster in your graveyard, special summon it, but it cannot attack. Its effects are negated. Also, it is destroyed during the end phase. And when this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, target one Linen Light monster in your graveyard, special summon it. This card is not once per turn. Luna Light has a lot of effects that bounce your cards, so you can just activate it, summon the monster back, bounce it, activate it again, summon the monster back, bounce it again, or activate another one, because it's not once per turn. Use that effect to destroy them. You just kept going. Nowadays, that deck was really banned quickly at the release of the Emancipator deck. And honestly, the 2 decks are like super similar, and there's no reason this deck can't exist and that Emancipator can, but eventually it got banned because it was just really good. Shoutouts to Raphael Naven for innovating with that deck. Now this one is another old one. It's Magical Scientists. Pay 1000 life points to special summon 1 level 6 or lower fusion monster from your fusion deck in face of attack or defense position. That fusion monster cannot attack your opponent's life points directly, and it's returned to your fusion deck at the end of the turn. This card was banned way back ago, and this already was broken because you could just summon this. Pay 4000 life points, summon your entire field. Tribute them away for a tribute summon or metamorphosis or whatever. And nowadays this is still really insane. Just imagine this in link format. You could just pay 7000 life points to build your board. Back then this card was already broken because it just summoned everything, and then you could do shenanigans with those cards, and nowadays it's even more broken. Way more broken. Then we have Matcha Specter Kirin, another Pendulum card. No Pendulum effect. During either player's turn, target 1 Pendulum monster in your monster zone and 1 monster your opponent controls, return them to the hands. You can only use this effect once per turn. This card cannot be destroyed by battle, or be targeted by, or cannot be destroyed by card effects, or destroyed, or be targeted. So basically, at a certain point in time, every Pendulum deck was playing like semi-extenders and cards that go plus. One of the cards you could play was Matcha Specter Bobunku, a level 3 deck. That's a Matcha Specter card. And then link him away for a Electromite or whatever extender you needed. And then you could just summon this card on your field. And this card cannot be targeted or destroyed, so it's really difficult to out. And this card basically messed with every deck. I remember back then I played Burning Abyss, and this card was on the field, and you just cannot out it. And you make a Dante, they bounce it. And then next turn they Pendulum summon it. Then they bounce a card. And then next turn they Pendulum summon it. They bounce a card. And then it only required 1 Babunku. And yeah, this card is just way too hard to out. It actually cannot even be played in the Matcha Specter deck itself, because your skills are not for level 6. So this was just being played in every Pendulum deck ever, because they could just Pendulum summon it over and over again, and it was just so annoying. Glad this card got banned. This card is really broken too. Makira the Destructor, enabler of FTKs. During the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can activate trap cards from your hand. If you want to know how bad of an idea that is, just play 3 Reckless Greed, 3 Jar of Greed, 3 Legacy of Yatagarasu, all Exodia pieces, and eventually we'll get out of hand. This card is at 1 in the OCG currently, and it is errated that you can only activate 1 trap card during the turn this card is sent to the graveyard. Of course, this card has some difficulties. Back then, it was really easy to send it to the graveyard with cards like Painful Choice, stuff like that. But activating traps from your hand is just honestly just insane. It's just insane. So this card was always broken. It was banned really quickly, and it's never a good idea to bring it back. I do not like errataing the card like the OCG did, because it will destroy its legacy. This card should just stay on the ban list for a really long time. Just imagine drawing your entire deck because you sent this card to the grave. Let's go to a fan favorite. This masterpiece, the Draco Slaying King. To tribute summon this card face up, you contribute continuous spell traps you control as monsters, unaffected by the effects of cards which the same attribute of type, monster, spell, or trap card, as the original type of the card attributed for this tribute summoned monster. Once per turn during another player's turn, you control this tribute summoned monster, banish 1 continuous spell trap card from your graveyard, target 1 other card on the field, destroy that target. True Draco is an interesting deck that attributes its own continuous spells and traps. For the tribute summons, those spells and traps destroy other spells and traps and monsters. and they draw cards equal to the monsters or to the spell traps you attributed, and they shuffle them back, and they summon other monsters that add spells and traps and monsters, and True Draco honestly is insane. Combined with Diagram, this card was really, really difficult to out, being unaffected by spells and monsters. It was really difficult in that format, and this masterpiece was always just contesting. Like, cards like these are known as the towers because of clever towers. They are unaffected by things, and that makes it really, really difficult. Imagine playing Sky Striker, and this card is unaffected by monsters and spells. How are you going to out this? It's a 2950 attacker. That's insane, and it has a quick play pop effect. It's just like, what deck is going to out this? How is Elpic going to out this if it's unaffected by monster effects and traps? Like, I can just kick over it with Lord. Because you have Draconic Diagram on the field, this card cannot be destroyed by battle once. So how is Elpic going to out this? It can't. There's no way you can out this effectively because it's just too strong. And that difficulty of dealing with this card and the consistency of the Draco deck itself, this card was eventually banned and Draco moved on to a more stun format type. And this card did not see the light of day again. Can it go back to 1? Preferably not. Sure. This one is controversial. I believe you all know this card. This is Max C. During either player's turn, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard. This turn, each time your opponent special summons a monster, immediately draw 1 card. You can only use one Max C per turn. This card was a 3-off when summoning monsters was really difficult. Then summoning monsters became more easy. This card was seen in every deck. Eventually it was brought 2 because of its power, eventually it was brought to 1 for its power, and eventually it was banned because every deck was still playing the one of Maxi and it was getting kind of sacky. So what does that mean? This card is honestly insane. It morphs the game. Imagine you playing a combo deck like Element Spader and you reveal your Researcher in hand. Maxi gets discarded. Do you give your opponent like 20 more cards? That's insane. They can draw their Nibiru's, they can draw their Vertelsmeis, their Ashes, their Ogres. And because of that issue, because just combo decks were not playable because this card exists, it got semi-limited and limited. But then eventually it got sacky and eventually Maxi left the game. The OCG still has this card and it's an entirely different game because of that. Control decks are really, really insane there because of Maxi. Like a combo deck really has difficulty playing when your opponent has 20 cards. And that's the reason Maxi got banned. That's the reason it will never come back, because it will just morph the game way, 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 way too much. Let's go to Mind Master. Pay 800 life points, tribute 1 psychic monster, except Mind Master to special summon level 4 psychic monster from your deck in your face of attack position. This card is never once per turn. Summon up psychic. Summon this card next to it like E-Tally. Tribute it. Go plus, use more effects. Summon back from grave, extend, and this card is just honestly insane. Not being once per turn. Way, way, way too broken. Harpour, Orcus card. You can banish this card from your graveyard, summon 1 Orcus monster from your deck, except Harpour or Azro. You cannot special summon monsters during the rest of its turn, except the Dark Monster. This card is 1 per turn. This card enabled the entire Orcus deck to basically fetch out any monster you needed, like Symbol Skeleton, and extend further, and basically start a place. Just 1 Foolish Burial, you could make Harpour a thing, and summon out Orcus from deck and extend further, like Armageddon Knight was broken, Graver was broken. All those cards were enabling Orcus to play. This card is maybe way too much because Orcus is now unplayable, so this card, in my opinion, can definitely go to 1 next bandit. Then we have more Pendulum cards. This is Plushfire. Remember when I said when cards are destroyed in Pendulum, it's really good. If this card is destroyed, Pendulum effect doesn't matter. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon 1 Perform Mage monster from your hand or deck. Why? Just activate this in a skill, activate another thing, destroy it, summon a monster from deck. Back then you played Wavering Eyes, you played Pendulum Perform Magician. If you use Pendulum Summon to destroy this card, extend, they just destroy this card, extend. This card was banned really, really, really quick. And then another one was Perform Monkey Board. If this card is in your Pendulum skill, you can add 1 level 4 or lower Perform Palm monster from your deck to your hand. That's it. And basically, consistency. Activate this, add this 1, Wavering Eyes, destroy them, whatever. Go plus, summon more monsters. For example, another card you can add if you already have this one is this card, which is the next card on the ban list. Scroll Joker, no relevant pendulum effect, but when this card is normal summoned, you can add one performable monster. Or Magician, pendulum monster, or All Ice monster from your deck to your hand. Which is the best pendulum normal summon in the game, and honestly, look at these three. This is like the triplets of mayhem, honestly. This is just so insane. The consistency is way off the charts. This card was banned real quick, this card was banned real quick, this card was put to 1 real quick, then it was banned, and it was at 1 again, then it was banned again, because it was just too good. And that's basically it for all the pendulum cards. Just consistency. If you really want to look up more, search for Pepe format. It was tier 0 format, it was really, really fun. Then here we have Phoenixian Cluster Amaryllis. So, this card cannot be special summoned except by its own effect, or with Phoenix Seed. If this card attacks or is destroyed with damage calculation... If this card attacks, it is destroyed. Okay. If this card you control is destroyed and sent to graveyard, inflicts 800 damage to your opponent. During the end phase, you can remove one planet type monster from your graveyard, special summon this card from your graveyard in defense position. What you basically did was combine it with another card that we will talk about a little bit later in 2 cards. So let me just quickly move the next one out of the way. This is Redox. It's an Earth Dragon ruler, summoning and banishing 1 Earth and a Dragon, 2 dragons or 2 Earths. Its effect in the hand is you can discard this card and 1 Earth monster, target 1 monster in your graveyard, special summon the target. If this card is banished, add 1 Earth Dragon type monster from your deck to your hand. Imagine this card in Emancipator, and basically you get why this card is banned. Another Dragon Ruler, another way too generic card, and this card was banned together with all the other Dragon Rulers, and this card cannot return in the current game because they already have a Dragon Ruler and it's a Block Dragon, and that should be banned as well. Then we have Samsara Lotus. During your end phase, if you control no spells, trap cards, you can special summon this card from your graveyard in physical attack position. This card controller takes 1000 damage during each of your standby phase. So what you basically did is you looped these 2 cards. You kept destroying them, kept summoning them back in the end phase, and kept destroying them, and your opponent kept taking damage, and you kept banishing cards, and you kept summoning, and you kept summoning, and they kept taking damage. You took like 800 damage. Yeah, and you did just 10 times with a plant FTK, and that's basically what happened in the OCG. And then eventually it got banned before it even arrived here. Then we have another banned card, Spiral Master Plan. Once per turn, add 1 Spiral Mission card from your deck to your hand. And if this card is sent from the field, hand or field to the graveyard, or if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, add 1 Spiral Resort and 1 Spiral Monster from your deck to your hand. This card was getting out of hand as well. You could easily summon this card from your deck with the effect of Double Helix, which is really, really accessible for a Spiral deck. You could also send it to the graveyard with the brand new card Magician Souls, then just revive it, link it off again for another pluses. This card just went +2 when it was sent to the graveyard for no apparent reason. This card overstayed its welcome way too long, and eventually it got banned because Spiral just kept coming back and it kept coming back, and now the card is officially back because it was just giving way too much advantage to the Spiral deck. Substitute, another card that's not once per turn. Tribute 1 monster to special summon 1 Frog monster from your deck except Frog the Gem. Frog monsters except Frog the Gem cannot be destroyed by battle. Basically, summon this card, summon a Frog from your hand, ditch your entire deck, summon back Ronin Totem, summon back another Ronin Totem, link off or FTK or whatever. This card is just not once per turn and just way too good. You can just literally summon this, 1 extender, summon every Frog in your deck, fill your entire graveyard with resources, and this card was way too good. Terra Neptune, another card that requires context. Cannot be special summoned. This card gains the total original attack and defense of the monster distributed for the tribute summon. When this card is tribute summoned, target 1 effect monster in your graveyard that was distributed for the tribute summon. This card's name becomes that target's name. This card gains that target's effects. What you used to do, I believe you could search out this card, and then you summon the level 1 fusion, the Lyridisk fusion. Then that monster could copy the effect of a card in your grave. So you send a card that could do burn damage, then summon the level 1 fusion, which is instant fusion. Use the effect to burn your opponent, tribute it. Use the effect to copy the bird, use the bird's effect that he now is to copy the monster that burned, and then you burned your opponent again. And that made for a really consistent OTK. This card was banned really quick. Eventually, Pendulum FTK still managed to go around, and we will talk about that in a little bit as well. But this card got the X because of FTKs. Here's title. It's the Water Dragon Ruler. Same effect, summon it by banishing dragons. If this card is banished, add a Water Dragon monster. And you can discard this card and one water monster to the graveyard, send one monster from your deck to your graveyard. Oh my god, that's so broken. I forgot that this card. Yeah, just in any water deck, this card is too good. In Mermaid, it's too good because it's level 7, which was Mermaid's levels as well. And this card just got the X, and it will never ever return, just like the other Dragon Rulers. Then we have Victory Dragon. Victory Dragon is a really simple monster. It requires 2 monsters to be tribute summoned. It must be tribute summoned, and if it attacks your opponent's life points and reduces them to 0, and reduces them to 0, you win the match. Which is totally ridiculous. That's a really common effect. Usually it is on the world's prize cards, but it's also on Victory Dragon. It's really strong because you win the match. So not the game. If you were like 1-1. Or if you're like your opponent won game 1, then you go and you attack your opponent for game, and you win the match. So there's no game 3, you win the match. But what you can do is on attack declaration, just scoop. And then it didn't attack and you don't lose the match. But sure. Are you ready for controversy? Here is Yatagarasu, the last monster on the banlist. It's a spirit monster, which means that if he is normal summoned this turn, it will return to the hand or the end phase, and that cannot be special summoned. When this card attacks your opponent's life points and inflicts battle damage, your opponent skips their next draw phase. Back then you had a combo where you would have a Sun Gun on your field, summon Chaos Emperor Dragon, nuke the entire field, Sun Gun effect, add Yata, summon Yata, attack. Your opponent has no cards because of the Chaos Emperor Dragon, and this is the only card you have, and then you win the game, because your opponent cannot draw. Nowadays, this card can just go back to 3, and people were getting mad at the last video because it's way too broken, but what are you going to do? How are your life points open? This card is only good if your opponent bricks, and if your opponent bricks, they lost anyway, no matter what deck you play. It's only fun they lose to a Yata. So honestly, this card can just go straight up back because it's way too slow. It needs to do damage. How are you gonna do damage over my elements by the board? Thank you for listening to my TED Talk. So those are all the monsters. Then we have Norden. It was an instant fusion target and a fusion substitute target. You can make him by fusing 1 Synchro RXE and 1 Synchro RXE. When this card is special summoned, target 1 level 4 or lower monster in your graveyard, special summon it, but its effects are negated, and banish it when it leaves the field. Generic XYZ support and Link support as well. This card was banned after a really long time, after everyone was playing instant fusion to summon it, and eventually they fusion summoned him in Zoo with fusion substitute, and that made it so bad that the card was eventually banned. This card was just reviving monsters left and right, making instant level or XYZ rank 4s, and it just got the X. Here we have King Dragon Starving Venom. This card also copies a monster in the graveyard. So what you did was you instant fusion the level 1 bird, then just tribute it away, do burn damage, summon this, do burn damage, summon this, do burn damage. Because you can make him by tributing 2 Dark Pendulum monsters. That's it. So in a Pendulum deck, you just Pendulum summon 4, instant fusion, get that monster off the field, summon this, copy the monster, do burn damage equal to its level, summon another, do burn damage equal to its level, then your opponent is dead and you win the game. That was Pendulum FTK format for you in like 1 second. It was super consistent format. It happened at 1 YCS, and after that it was banned. This card was banned because it's just way too good. It's the boy, it's Colossus. You can special summon this card either by fusion summoning or tributing a Thunder Dragon monster the turn the Thunder Dragon monster was activated in the hand. If this card would be destroyed, you can banish 1 Thunder monster from your graveyard instead. Destroyed by battle or card effects, that is. And your opponent cannot search cards. That's it. This snake did nothing wrong, please put him to 3. No, just kidding. This card can return to 1 and then it would still be insane, so honestly this card should probably stay banned, but I'm a little bit biased because I love this card. This card was making Thunder Dragons a real deck, and it was a menace against decks like Striker that searched cards, and honestly it was a Rogue Slayer as well, because each Rogue deck searches cards for some reason. And being able to protect itself, this card was just way too easy, way too difficult to out, and it eventually got the ban hammer. Starting off with Firewall Dragon. This was the problem card all along. Once for face on the field, quick effect, you can target monsters on the field in the graveyard up to the number of monsters correlating to this card, return these to the hands. And the second effect is if a monster this card points to gets destroyed by battle or sent to the graveyard, you can special summon 1 monster from your hand. Just keep summoning. just keep summoning. Summon a monster next to it, link it away, summon another monster and link it away. With Gaukeys, search each other when they are sent from the field to the graveyard. You could just keep going, keep going. This card was not once per turn. This card was first to 3, it was insane, then it was to 1, then it still was insane. And eventually Konami got around to banning it because people were just keep spamming Firewall Dragons. Then we have one of the card dragons, Dagger Pain. All the card dragons have the same effect, that you can special summon something from somewhere, a dragon, to a zone that 2 monsters point to. And so that's really an interesting mechanic. Dagger Pain summons a monster from the extra deck to a zone where 2 monsters point to. And it was a lot of free value. You could just summon out your Hot Red Dragon Orc Fiend, and then you can negate a face-up card, and it's a free negate. And all you did was play a combo. So it was a little bit too free for Dagger Pain to survive. Now we have a card that we've talked about before, Electromite. On summon, you can add a Pendulum monster from your deck to your extra deck. And once per turn, target one other face-up card you control, destroy it, add a Pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand. And if a Pendulum monster leaves the field in the Pendulum zone, draw a card. And all these effects are once per turn. Or at least the draw effect, only the draw effect is once per turn. So at first you were making triple Electromite, fixing your extra deck, keep getting the cards back to your hand. And eventually it was to 1, and then it was the only consistency Pendulum had, and eventually it was banned, and now Pendulum has no consistency anymore. This card was making Pendulum, but Konami got sick of tired of Pendulum, so now Pendulum is gone. Then we have Nightmare Goblin. If this card is linked, summon, discard 1 card. And if it's code linked, when this card effect was activated, draw 1 card. During the main phase, you can normal summon 1 monster in addition to a zone this card points to. And he has the continuous effect that your opponent cannot target co-linked monsters with effects. So this was being made for unbreakable fields because the link monsters were untargetable, and it was used as a very generic extender because it only needs 2 monsters with different names. So each deck could do 2 normal summons, and also eventually that was way too good with Gaukeys. Then we have Mermaid. Mermaid is another nightmare. You can make him by linking away 1 nightmare, discard 1 card, then draw 1 card if it was co-linked, and then you can summon a nightmare monster from your deck. Which was honestly also really, really insane. You could either summon Ibli, link Ibli away, summon in all your opponent's side of the field, and your opponent cannot special summon anything except link monsters, which is really good. Or you could summon Orchestrated Nightmare and do Orchest combo, which was why this card was used. Any 2 monsters in the game would result in Orchest combo, which resulted into the meme. Any 2 monsters is full combo. Summon Source, another card that was banned before we got Hulker Fibrax, but this card was really, really good anyway. If this card is linked, summon, special summon 1 monster from your hands to in defense position to your opponent's zone this card points to, which is really not used that often. Target 1 face-up monster, this card points to, special summon 1 monster from your deck in defense position with the same type of that monster to a zone the card points to, but negate its effects. This card could fetch out any card in your deck if you were playing the same at the same type, and eventually that 2 got just way, way, way out of hand. And yeah, this card was just really generic. It was a link 3, it was really easy to make in every deck, and you could just extend. Rusty Bardiche. 2+ dark monsters. During your main phase, send 1 Phantom Knight monster from your deck to the graveyard. Set 1 Phantom Knight spell trap directly from your deck to your spell trap zone. If a Dark XYZ monster is special to a zone this card points to, when this card is on the field, destroy 1 card. You can only use each effect once per turn. This card was really, really generic. It's being played in a lot of decks like Orcust, Burning Abyss. You don't even need to play Phantom Knights. You could just send 1 Silent Boots, set 1 Fog Blades, and then use the effects of Silent Boots, add another Fog Blade. So you have 2 trap cards that negate the monster's effects, and you have a very, very strong body on the field, and this was really, really way too generic for 2 negates. Especially when it was combined with Azathoth, which is a card we will talk later about, because it could set the rank up Magic Knights quick launch. We have Gambler, and Gambler is really broken as well. If a monster is summoned to a zone a link monster points to while this card is on the field, discard 1 or 2 random cards, then your opponent discards the same number. So this hand loops. And during the main phase, if this card is extra linked and your opponent has at least 1 card in their hand, make your opponent discard 1 or 2 cards. Then, if they have no more cards in their hand, inflict 3000 damage to them. So you hand loop for 4 cards. That's the effect of Gambler. And it made it really, really, really easy to discard your entire opponent's hand turn 1. Then we have Ancient Fairy Dragon, Ghost Rare. Again, shout out to CardGuild for providing these beautiful cards. 2 effects. Once per turn, special summon 1 level 4 monster from your hand, but you cannot collect your battle phase to turn active this effect. You can destroy a field spell you control, gain 1000 life points, and add 1 field spell from your deck to your hand. This card was being made way too generic with, what's it called, this trio, which was not banned at that point. Every deck was turboing out Ancient Fairy Dragon to destroy their field spell, to add another field spell to go more plus, and extend with the effect to summon another monster, and this card was just generic extending, and eventually it got the ban hammer. Danglong. It's a Yangzing card. If this card is special summoned, add a Yangzing card from your deck to your hand, preferably the counter trap that negates. Once per turn, send 1 weird monster from your deck to the graveyard. This card's level becomes the sent monsters. And this card is a tuner, so that fixes it for linking away. And if this face card leaves the field, special summon 1 Yangzing monster from your deck. So what you did, you were playing a Dino deck. You were making this really easy with a Miscellaneous Stars and an Oviraptor. Summon this, extend a little bit more, make this card level 1. Add the counter trap that negates if you control Yangzing. Then link this way for Trishula, banish a card from your opponent's hand. Overlay Trishula with a True King for VFD. Using this effect, when it is linked to or synchroed away to summon the Yangzing, then your counter trap is live, and you have basically won the game at that point, because you have a VFD and a counter trap, which is really insane. This card was setting up itself really, really strong in its mechanics, and it's honestly way too good. Then we have Danglong Boneless, IP the World's the World's Jealous Justice card, another tuner. If this card is synchro summoned, add 1 World Legacy card from your deck to your hand. If the synchro summoned card is into the graveyard, special summon 1 World Legacy monster from your deck or graveyard. This card was also being way too used in every deck. Eventually, people realized this is basically Danglong, but then a little bit worse. And eventually, all combo decks were making this card, like Thunder Dragon and Card Dragon stuff. And it was just really easy. And this card was banned before it was actually really abused. Then we have Tempest Magician, another card that Pendulum broke. Once per turn, discard any number of cards to place 1 spell counter on monsters you control. For each card discarded, you can remove all spell counters on the field to do 500 damage to your opponent for each removed spell counters. Spell counters were getting really generic with the release of the Endymion structure deck, and it was really easy to just spam out counters, and eventually you could just burn your opponent in one single go. Then onto the XYZs. We are almost through. Evolve a Chain. You could either detach 1 material to stack a card in your deck or send a card to your graveyard, and being generic Foolish Burial basically was way too good. This card was banned and will forever be missed and not be unbanned. MX Saber Evoker, a victim of the Zodiac deck. 2 level 3 monsters, summon 1 level 4 Earth monster or Beast Warrior monster from your deck in defensive position to destroy it. This card was being accessed in Zoo to summon Zodiacs, which was really good. And it was later accessed in Clownblade as well, and eventually this card was just a generic extender and got banned. Unlock the Shock. This requires 3 level 4 monsters, a little bit much. Detach 1 exclusive material from this card, declare a card type, monster spell trap. That type of card cannot be activated or activate its effects in your opponent's next turn. Floodgating your opponent with a generic monster is just way too good. Can this card come back? I don't think so, but Farfa wants it, and what Farfa wants, Farfa gets. Then we have number 24, Galaxy Tomahawk. People eventually realized that when you detach 2 materials, you can fill your entire field with tokens, and then people think, oh yeah, we can play Link monsters now. So this card went from obscenity to meta play to banned real quick, when people were summoning tokens on their entire field. Rongo Bongo. Rongo Bongo gains effects equal to the materials he has, and eventually people were making him really insane. So when he has 1 material, he cannot be destroyed by battle. 2 materials, he gets 1500 attack. 3 materials, unaffected by other card effects. 4 materials, your opponent cannot normal or special summon monsters. 5 materials, you can destroy all cards your opponent controls. This card eventually, with help of number 75, Bamboozling Gossip Shadow, was being made with 6 materials generically turn 1. Your opponent cannot summon monsters. There's no outing this card, except with like very specific side deck cards. But this card was just way too good. It popped up once at release, it popped up once in the end, and it got banned because it was just too generic. Outer Entity Azathoth. Oh. Number 95, Galaxy Eyes Dark Matter Dragon. This is one of the most powerful XYZs in the game. First of all, you can also XYZ summon this card by using a Galaxy Eyes XYZ monster you control as XYZ material, which are basically 2 level 8 monster XYZ monsters. He cannot be used as an XYZ material for an XYZ summon. But when this card is XYZ summoned, you can send 3 Dragon-type monsters with different names from your deck to your graveyard. Then, your opponent must banish 3 monsters from their deck. You can detach 1 XYZ material from this card. This card can take up to 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase this turn. So this card was able to send 3 dragons from your deck to the graveyard, which is insane. When this card was released, we still had the Dragon Rulers at 1, but at the moment of the arrival of this card, the Dragon Rulers were all banned. After that, this card found its way back into Dragon decks, the Thunder Dragon deck, I think I should say it like that, which basically sent Eclipse Weapon, Destrudo, and some other dragons to the graveyard that were really, really good. Eventually, people realized that sending 3 cards from your deck to the graveyard with only 2 level 8s was too broken, and this card eventually was banned. Outer Entity Azathoth. When this card is summoned, your opponent cannot activate monster effects. This was either summoning your opponent's turn with the Phantom Knight card, or this card was summoning your turn and your opponent cannot activate a monster effect, so you can just combo off. This card was also really, really generic, being abused in the Luna Light deck. Really, really easy, and eventually got banned because it's not really fun if you cannot activate any monster effects and just look at your opponent's combo. Mirage Salio, a victim to the generic banlist that banned Colossus as well. Konami basically banned this card to reduce the power creep of the Sun Grade in a really, really good way. This card is detach 1 material, summon a Sun Grade monster from your deck, but its second effect is when this card is linked away, you can target a card on the field and return it to the hand, which is the only way Sun Grade really outs. So this card is both a hit to the generic summon Sun Grade cards, and it's a hit to the removal potential of the Sun Grade deck. Sun Grade is in a really, really good spot now. Even with 1 Gazelle and 1 Circle, and honestly, this card banned is fine. Ptolemaeus could rank itself up by detaching a material and then summon basically Infinity. So every deck, when this card released, could play Infinity. And eventually people realized they could do that, and then every deck made Infinity, and then they banned the card really, really quick. Wind-up Zen Mighty is a wind-up card. Once per turn, detach 1 of your material from this card, special summon 1 wind-up monster from another deck. When a face of wind-up monster on it, try to sit to the graveyard. Detach 1 extra material to target that monster, return it to the hand. So this card basically sets up the entire wind-up engine, and I didn't play that format, so I don't know that much about it. But what I do know is the deck was looping a lot. This card is not once per turn, so I can imagine keep summoning your wind-up cards was just way, way, way too good. Another Zodiac monster is Broad Bull is being made by 2 level 4 monsters, which is honestly one of the best parts of this card. So you can summon him over a zoo monster, just any zoo monster. You do not need to overlay, you can just overlay it on top of 1 monster. Detach 1 Search a Beast Warrior, which is not once per turn, which made this card really, really generic. Any deck that played 2 level 4s could make this card, add a Beast Warrior and then make a Trident, which pops a card on the field, which was insane. And for Zodiac, this card was also quite insane. Eventually people got around to making this card 3 times in a turn, searching their entire deck, keep comboing further, and this is the main card you really want to ban of the Zodiac. Then we go to the spell cards. These should go quite quick because they are all really, really broken. Brilliant Fusion lets you fusion summon a Gem Knight from your deck by sending materials from your deck to the graveyard. This was good in every generic deck because you could make Seraphonite, which was making another normal summon, and then you send a light monster, which was another extender, and so you got a double summon, you got an extender, you got a deck thin, you got Link Father. This card was basically doing everything it should be. It was at 1, but eventually that was way too good for Gem Knight FTK because it's an FTK deck, and eventually this card got banned just because it's way too good. Bloodified Dagger Alma is a really niche card. If this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can add it back to your hand. That's it. Do you have a level 4 monster, a Cure 3 the Iron Knight? if it is equipped without an equip card, the equip card is destroyed. Which basically triggered FTKs or infinite troll combos, and that's why this card is banned, because Gear Feed exists. Also, it's not once per turn, you can just keep adding it back, so not even Gear Feed, but there are way more options. But basically, combine this with the Royal Magical Library and draw your entire deck out. Card of Safe Return, which was a card that was a 3 at a certain point, and why, I don't know. If a monster is special summons from to the field from the graveyard, draw one card, which is not once per turn. Combined with cards back in the day like Plague Spreader or Mizuki, you could just draw 4 cards and keep summoning, keep drawing cards, and basically win the game. Change of heart. Target one. Select and control one opposing monster, regardless of position on the field, until the end of your turn. Select and control one opponent. So target one monster on the field, take control of it until the end of the turn. You can attack with it, you can tribute it, you can link with it, you can exceed with it, you can synchro with it, you can do everything you want to do with it. And back then it was already broken, and back now it's way too broken. This card will never come back. Chicken Game. Chicken Game's a heavy card. It's an interesting card. The player with the lowest life points take no damage. Once per turn during the main phase, the turn player can pay 1000 life points, then draw one card, destroy this card, or your opponent gains 1000 life points. And neither player can activate cards in response to this card's activation. So this card was being played at 3 in almost every deck because it was just generic and you were playing other field spells, so you could just draw like 1 or 2 cards because it's once per turn. Or once per turn per chicken game. So you could just activate another chicken game, draw more cards. There were FTKs with that, and you could just shut it down by activating another field spell, and then your opponent didn't have the effect. So you could just keep drawing your cards. It was a consistency card. Cold Wave. This card can only be activated at the start of main phase 1 until your next turn. You nor your opponent can play or set magic or trap cards. So at the start of your main phase, you go second, you do this, your opponent cannot activate your traps, and you win the game. That's basically it. Confisca. Paga 1000 life points to look at your opponent's hand, select one card, and shuffle it back into their deck. Just insane. Just go first, look at your opponent's hand, shuffle something back, win the game from there. Delicate Duo, pay 1000 life points, again, look at your opponent's hand, discard one card, then they discard one card at random. Why do these cards exist? I don't know, but there's a third one, which is really, really interesting. But looking at your opponent's hand and ripping cards out of that is really not fun or fair. Pay 2000 life points, summon as many special summon or as many banished monsters as possible. Dimension Fusion, which was really broken with Dark Magician of Chaos back then. That was really broken with basically any Chaos deck, because you could just Monster Days Reasoning your entire deck to the grave, summon BLS, summon Chaos Sorcerer, summon everything you banished back. Win the game. This card can never ever return. Imagine if you play against like Emancipator and they banish all their cards for Blood Dragon and they just summon them back. Giant Tornado. Heavy Storm, but that's slightly different. Return all spells and traps on the field to the owner's hands. So not even lets this OTK you through your opponent's field. It also, for example, if you play Pendulum, you can add your skills back to your hand, which is why this card can never return. Because you just go plus yourself and you OTK your opponent. Then we have Graceful Charity, another well-known card. And draw 3 cards, discard 2 cards. So you dig 3 into your deck. Discard cards has synergy, and this card is way too broken to be seeing play anytime soon. Hybrid Feather Duster, a card people have been wanting back. Destroy all spells traps your opponent controls. Opponent controls is really important, so that Pendulum cannot take advantage of their destructive effects. Can this card return? I'm not sure. They limited the red reboot, so I'm not sure where they will be going with that. I don't really like swings like this. It's just kind of too good to be true, you know. We have Heavy Storm, which is Hybrid Feather Duster, but you can destroy your own cards as well. Or you have to destroy your own cards as well. It's just too generic. I don't like your opponent sets 5, they don't have a judgment, then you destroy their entire field. That was that fun. Here we have an interesting one. Shoutouts to Devon, friend of mine. Okay, it's a Colosseum. If the player who activates this, if he has one monster, their opponents also can only have one monster. If they have two monsters, your opponent can have two monsters. But if then you go to one monster, your opponent cannot summon any more monsters, but they only can go to one. They don't have to send any other monsters, but this card was creating ruling issues left and right, and this card was honestly insane and really oppressive. Back then you had a card like Dark Destroyer, which could not be targeted, and if it was destroyed it would float back again. And how do you out it? Because you cannot activate like any effects to remove it. That was, for example, Stormforth, because it was illegal, because it would attempt to make another summon, which is something you couldn't do. And just stare down at one big monster, you cannot combo yourself, and then you basically lose the game. So Kaiser Colosseum got banned. Last will is interesting. You can only use this effect once, and only once during this turn. So you could just activate this as a spell. And then, when a monster on your side of the field is sent to your graveyard, special summon one monster from your attack with 1500 life or less attack from your deck, attention for your deck. So what you basically could just do is you could just activate this, and then once in your turn, when a monster has left the field, you can summon a monster from your deck. That's just a lingering effect for some reason. This card was way too generic. You could just summon any monster from your deck, fetch any card in your deck, and that was just way too good. Here we have Mass Driver. Over one monster on your side of the field is distributed to inflict 400 damage to your opponent's life points. Combine this with the Substitute, which is there, and you can mill your entire deck of frogs, summon them all back with Drone and Totem, and just keep burning your opponent until they are dead. Which was really common. This card was used in FTKs most of the time, and has never really seen fair play. Metamorphosis, another code card. Offer one monster on your side of the field as a tribute to special summon one fusion monster with the same level of basic attack or defense position. Monsters used for tributes are offered as tributes due to other cards' effects or whatever. You can tribute a monster on your field, summon a monster with the same level from your extra deck, which was able to summon negates, stronger beatstick monsters, or 1000 dice restrict back then. And if you would do this now and summon Norden, that would just be insane. So this card should definitely stay banned, because there are way too many good fusion monsters on level. Barrage of Nightmare. During your opponent's standby phase, draw cards until your hand has 4 cards. During your standby phase, randomly discard the same number of cards you drew with this card's effect. So, the first effect activates, but the second effect as well. Which means that if you draw until your hand has 4 cards, and you then remove this card from the field, you do not have to discard, which is really good. So you can just fill your hand with hand traps or other cards, destroy it with a Twin Twister or a Dust Tornado back then, and then you have 4 cards in your hand, and that's it. Plus, playful choice. Select 5 cards from your deck, show them to your opponent, they pick one, that card goes to your hand, the rest goes to your grave. So if you reveal 5 cards with grave effects, 4 of them will go off, which is honestly, I don't have to explain that, do I? Send 3 block dragons, really good. Why is this card banned? Because it's too good. I'm not going to talk about it, and I'm not going to meme about it. This is Monster Reborn, but you pay 800 life points, and if this equipped card is gone, the monster is gone as well. If you can bounce this card to use it multiple times with cards like Sephiroth and stuff like that, which is why it's way more insane. Premature Burial has been on the ban list and will be on the ban list forever because it's too generic. You can bounce it. This card has some really interesting feats. So it's a rank up card, so you can make a number monster to a sea monster. But the most important effect is when a rank 5 or higher monster is special summoned to your side of the field, but this card is in your graveyard, you can add this card from your graveyard to your hand. What you would do is you would make a Beatrice, send this card to the grave, overlay Gaia Charger over Beatrice, because you could just do that, add this to your hand. Then if you have another XC monster, discard this for the summon of Zexo, which was the only way to summon Zexo, because Zexo can also be summoned by discarding a rank up card. And this was the only rank up card on the ban list right now, and it's only there because of that reason, because it's way too generic to make a Zexo. Here we have Engage. This card will not go back, never. If you control no monsters, add one Sky Striker card from your deck to your hand. If you have 3 or more spells, draw 1 card. This card is not once per turn, just like any of the Sky Striker cards. This card will never ever return. Keep dreaming, Sky Striker fanboys. Take control of one monster your opponent controls. During each of your opponent's standby phase, they gain 1000 life points. Snatch, steal, an equip card. Just steal any monster, attribute it, link it away, whatever. This card is way broken. Konami once put this card to 1 in Clifford format, which was really weird. And then it was a really sacky card, because you could just steal your opponent's monster without consequences, and it just got out of hand and eventually got banned. Here we have Soul Charge, which is a card that was a 3. This card, target any number of monsters to your graveyard, special summon them. If you do, take 10,000 life point damage for each monster special summoned. You cannot collect your battle phase. So, link away your entire field, summon them back, extend more, make a huge comeback play, summon back anything, combo. Monster Viewer was bad, but this card was a 3 at a certain point in the game. Think about that. Really think about it. How summoning back 5 monsters is healthy. Spellbook of Judgment. During the end phase of the turn this card was activated, add spellbook cards from your deck to your hand, except Spellbook of Judgment, up to the number of spell cards activated after this card's resolution. Then you can special summon one spellcaster type monster whose level is less than or equal to the cards added. So what people forget is the last effect, because the adding effect really isn't that good. Spellbooks are really not good, and the most that you are going to add is 3 or 4 cards, which of course is really good, but it's in the end phase. But then you can summon Xiao Guan, and Xiao Guan lets your opponent not special summon. So this card is kind of really good in the context of that card. This card was banned in spellbook format when this card was a 3. It has been rumored up to date that there is still a spellbook player searching spellbook cards as we speak. So that grass looks greener. My favorite card. If you have more cards in your deck than your opponent does, send cards from the top of your deck to the graveyard so you have the same number. You play a 60 card deck, your opponent plays a 40 card deck, you activate this card, you mill 20 cards. And graveyard effects always have been broken, always will be broken, and this card eventually got the axe. The last card of the spells is Forceful Sentry. Look at your opponent's hand, select 1 card, return it to their deck. That's it. And loop. Then we go to the traps. And all the traps are really broken. This is the last turn. This card may only be activated during your opponent's turn when your life points are 1000 or less. Select 1 monster from your side of the field, send all other cards on the field in their respective owner hands to the graveyard. Then your opponent must special summon 1 monster from their deck. Then enter the battle phase, and whoever monster is on the field wins. What you would do is you would summon Xiao Guan, which makes your opponent not being able to special summon. Activate this card, and your opponent cannot special summon the monster from the deck, so you win. Really easy, cheap win. Here we have Ritorno dell'altra dimensione. Pay half your life points, special summon as many of your banished monsters as possible, but they get banished during the end phase. This card was being able to push for game in scenarios where you would not be able to, and you can always pay half your life points, so this card eventually got out of hand. Royal Oppression. Either player can pay 800 life points to negate the special summon of a monster and or affected special summons a monster destroy those cards. So you are ahead on board, you have monsters, your opponent would special summon a card, you could just negate it. And the fact that they can negate as well doesn't matter because you already have a board. So this card was just way too good and oppressive. Self-destruct button, this is a fun one. You can activate this card when your life points are lower than your opponent's life points and the difference is 7000 or more. Both players' life points become 0. This card was forcing draws left and right. Shoutouts to Yuri for doing that back then. And drawing is really not really fun, and people were making stall strategies or playing this as a last resort. This card was limited before it came out, and it was super expensive since it's a short print. Declare 2 numbers from 1 to 6. Your opponent rolls a 6-sided die. If the result is one of the numbers you declared, draw that many cards, otherwise send out top cards from your deck to the graveyard. So sending the cards from the deck to the graveyard was already good, that format. It was around the Lightstorm format, I guess. But you would just say 5-6. If it was 5-6, you would draw 5 to 6 card and win with 5 to 6 cards. If it wasn't, you would mill those cards and you would also win. This card was limited at release already. The final stretch, 4 more cards. Time Seal, skip the draw of your opponent's next turn. Why? This card was at 3 at a certain point, so your opponent just couldn't draw, which is really weird. Sacrifice one of your cards so your opponent loses a card. Here we have Trap Dust Shoot. You cannot activate this card if your opponent has 4 or more cards in their hand, which is fair. Look at their hand, select one monster, return it to the owner's deck. Shuffle the deck. That's it. Another. Well, Yu-Gi-Oh! Back then was only discarding your cards and sending them back to the deck. Ultimate Offering, a gadget card. At the cost of 500 life points per monster, a player is allowed to do an extra normal summoner set. This was not once per turn, and you could just summon. Together with the gadgets, you could just keep summon. And this card really isn't that good. It could come back to 1 or 2 or 3. It would not do anything because it's a trap. The last but not least, Vanity's Emptiness. Neither player can special summon monsters. When a card is sent from the deck or field to the graveyard, destroy this card. So you are in full control of the duel. Your opponent cannot special summon and you can just shut it off by activating a spell. That's it. That is the entire ban list. So, let's take a quick look at a close-up. So this is years of Yu-Gi-Oh! All combined, old cards, new cards, FTKs, control, hand loop cards. Honestly, it's quite a ride. I really hope that you guys learned from this video. I really hope that you guys picked something up and can explain to your friends why the Volvo chain is banned now. And why cards like Giant Roulette and Delicate Duo are not the best idea to have in your game. So yeah, if you like a video like this, I could definitely do more historic content like this. I really like doing that stuff, and I want to thank you guys for watching, and we will see you guys in the next video. Bye guys.